Today on the channel, we're going to check out Guitar World from the summer of 2004, Guitar Legends. Alright, so for today we've got Guitar Legends by Guitar World. This was from summer of 2004. So on a hot summer night about 18 years ago, Guitar Legends came out. This was around the time of the Sammy Hagar reunion with the band, and kind of apropos for the summer of 2004. Looks like we got some good transcriptions in here. Hot for Teacher, Panama, Light Up the Sky, Finish What You Started, Ice Cream Man, and The Definitive Guide to Playing Eruption. I don't think I ever really paid attention to these, but I need to go back through and see some of these things, just make sure I'm not missing something. I always like looking at tablatures, even if I'm familiar with a tune. Eddie's Guide to the Best of Van Halen, 5 Rare Interviews. Man, there's a lot of stuff in here. I may have to skim through some of this stuff because these videos tend to get a little bit lengthy. But so let's dig in. Let's take a look. All right, San Dimas 25th anniversary. That's pretty cool, man. I don't get why they wouldn't put a Floyd on it, but dudes, if you haven't seen the Charvel YouTube video that's out now, it's a couple hours long. It's awesome. I watched the whole thing last week, and I thought it was going to be boring. I was entertained the entire way. There's so many cool stories in the Charvel YouTube documentary, especially about Michael Anthony and his Jack Daniels bass and stuff. It's very, very cool stuff. A lot of stuff about Charvel Jackson that I had no clue. Okay, so keep on turning. There we got Sammy Hagar looking all Margaritaville. Man, look at these crate. I think that was the Blue Voodoo amps for Sammy Hagar anyway, the Sammy Hagar edition. Right there's the boys walking backstage, getting ready to go on stage and kill some tunes, man. All right, that's a little disturbing, that Photoshop on that Michael Anthony ad. Okay, so yeah, this was this looks definitely around the 04 time with the reunion tour. Eddie had his hair down instead of the ponytail. But they look good here, man. This is a great picture. Edward and the band break the silence. I don't know if I ever read that. There's Perfect Pitch commercial again. All right. T-shirts. There's Eddie with his pick. This is a great picture. He's got his pink jumpsuit on. This is a weird looking guitar. I always wondered what this thing was. I never really researched that. He's got this 335 laying on the ground. There's an ovation. There's a bumblebee. There's the shark. The story of how Eddie Van Halen revolutionized rock guitar. They blew us off the stage every night. Famous quote from Ozzy Osbourne. Famous picture here of them playing in the studio with the big bomb, the effects unit. Looks like a Dan Electro. Eruption was originally just a guitar solo I performed regularly in our club days when we were recording. The first album, our producer, Ted Templeman, heard me and practicing it and for an upcoming gig and asked, "What the hell is that?" These are some pretty cool pictures. There's Ed and Gary. Eddie always reminded me of Jimmy Page during this era. He had the kind of the hair and he dressed up a little fancier, kind of Jimmy Page-esque. His solos, I felt, on Van Halen 3 were very Jimmy Page. You know, I wish that album was produced better and edited better. It probably would have been a good album with some direction. You can kind of see through some of the mess. That's a cool picture there. Eddie Van Halen on Dance the Night Away. And it ended up completely different from how I imagined it. When you're writing a piece of music and other people get involved, it always turns into something else. It ended up having an almost Latin flavor to it, which I really didn't dig. Still, it's a nice song, a pop tune. And the Cradle Will Rock, oh man, that was hilarious. I spent 2 weeks of rehearsals just pounding out this groove on an old Wurlitzer electric piano and an MXR flanger and a stack of Marshalls. Elle and I were having a cool time playing it, and the thing is, I didn't have a clue where to take it, so we just kept banging, hammering away. Finally, one chord came and it all snapped into shape. Unchained, what was I thinking? I don't have a clue. The whole album, fair warning, was kind of a dark period. I don't know whether it was fueled by anger or whatever, but I ended up doing 50% of the, or 90% of the guitar at 4 in the morning. Nothing was really being done during the day, so I'd go back down at night and do it. I met Joe Perry once and walked up to shake his hand, and he looked at me and walked away. Joe was probably stoned out of his gourd. I haven't heard anyone do anything interesting, do an interesting long guitar solo outside of the early Clapton. In the live show, I do a guitar solo that is long. Some people may think it's boring, but I have fun. Clapton was my favorite with his feel. He'd hit one note where someone else would hit 20, and I would really do it'd really do something to you, whereas another person's 20 would leave you flat. Guitar World says, you could be accused of playing too many notes. Then Eddie says, I'm not Eric Clapton. I might play fast, but there are a lot of people who play fast with no feel at all. I'm high energy, but I think I combine a little more feeling and some different techniques than other high energy players. They ask what he thinks of Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page is an excellent producer. Zeppelin 1 and 2 are classics. As a player, he's very good in the studio, but I've never seen him play well live. He's sloppy. He plays like he's got a broken hand and he's 2 years old. If you put out a good album and play like a 2-year-old, what's the purpose? What kind of pickups do you use? I use Gibson Paffs, DiMargios, and Seymour Duncans. I'd say that one out of all the super distortion garbage out there, I like Seymour Duncan's best. It's a matter of taste. I prefer the Paffs because they get the tone I like. I would have to agree. Paffs are the best. I like Duncans too. What about the snake guitar? Who dreamed that up? A friend of mine, John Sterry, came up with the idea. It used to be an Explorer. The neck and the body of the rarest wood you can buy. From Africa. As Jump hit Billboard's #1 slot, Guitar World presented one of the first interviews from 5150, Eddie's new home studio, by Steve Rosen. There's a naked girl in the background there. And a half-naked girl there. What are these guys doing, man? What do they think they are, rock stars or something? I'm happy being who I am. I wouldn't want to be anybody else. I never suggest to Dave what to write lyrics about. Once he writes lyrics, Ted and Alan, I suggest going this way or that way with it. I guess that's why sometimes I don't lean toward his lyrics, because something about them takes away from the mood of the music that the music creates, even covers that mood. It might take it to a better place, and sometimes not. Sometimes it takes away from the original feel of what is happening, and I can't exactly say, hey, it was sexy before, now it's a feeling. Like, how do you explain Sing's opening notes of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony? What words would you say to that? When something sounds a certain way, I can't easily picture lyrics with it, because it's pretty self-explanatory. Guitar World says, like the opening of 84? Eddie goes, yeah, I couldn't hear any singing over that. What are your feelings about Dave's solo album? And Ed goes, I think it's something he always wanted to do. I think it's great he's actually doing it. Put it this way, it's something I've always wanted to do too and haven't done. I guess it's in a funny way it explains Dave as a vocalist and a lyricist. He did 4 cover tunes, California Girls, Easy Street, Just a Gigolo, and one other one, yet managed to project his personality through them. I expect it to be accepted by people in the same way everything we've done has been. I've heard it all, and it sounds really good. Edgar Winter played a lot of the stuff on it, and one of the Beach Boys actually sang on California Girls. Ted produced it. It's Dave. That's nice of Eddie to say. Jump was the first song I wrote that was recorded in my home studio, 5150. It's pretty well-known fact that that certain people didn't want me to play keyboards because they thought I should only be a guitar hero. Panama was inspired by AC/DC. We had just done a tour with them, and a year before, and the power of those guys blew my mind. The constant boom, boom, boom. They play the same song over and over, but it's a great song. I love it. This is some good stuff here from Ed. God, I miss Ed. What was the first song you recorded? I don't remember. On Fire, I think. I played the harmonics at the beginning on the A and D strings, 1 fret down from the E position, 7th fret on the A strings. It's actually not a harmonic. It's just a muffled, dead, weird sound, and it sounded kind of machine-like. We wanted a little break between verses and said, this is neat. How about this? It sounds rude. Did you use a sitar on Ain't Talking About Love? I doubled that one part. It could have been a choral guitar, but it looked really cheap. It looked like a Dan Electro with some kind of stuff muffling the strings back there. I never really knew if it was an electric sitar, because it didn't sound like one. It just sounded like a buzzy, fretted guitar. That thing was really bizarre. Cream made music exciting in a way I don't think people usually understood. It was almost as if the lyric and the actual song structure was secondary. Yeah, I'd agree to that. The guitar solo in Mean Street was very aggressive. Were you angry? Were you an angry young man that day? Eddie goes, laughs. I was trying to be mad, but it just seemed to fit. I wasn't trying to be mad, but it just seemed to fit. I think I did some interesting solos in the Fair Warning album. You tried your hand out in Slide on Dirty Movies. I came up with that melody on Slide, so I played it on the record on Slide. The funny thing is I couldn't get up high enough on the guitar, so I sawed a part of it off. I used an old Les Paul Jr. that had a SG body style and that one hook. What do you call it? The horn? Guitar World says. Eddie goes, yeah, the horn. The bottom one on the was in the way, so I took a hacksaw right there in the studio and said, hold this, Ted. And I sawed it off. Didn't you do something interesting in the solo for So This Is Love? Out of 6 solo tracks, Ted let me mess around a little bit, but didn't think it was good enough. So then Don showed up, and I said, why don't you try it once? He said, why don't you try it once? And I thought, I was just going to try it. But he recorded my composite, and that was my first attempt. It's like 4 solos punched together. That surprised a few people. Do you go through different feels of a solo before coming up with the one that you think will work? I don't know. It's not an intentional planned out thing. Whatever sounds right, I guess. Got the beat neck going on there. All right, let's see what we have. I'm partly brainwashed by the whole aspect of the business that there's something expected of me. And that the first album was really captured at the moment. It was different, but if the next album had been the same, then it wouldn't have been different, wouldn't it? It's very difficult to figure out what to do on record. Maybe that's why I haven't done one on my own. I'm partly brainwashed by the whole music business, and that's something, that there's something expected of me. What if I did something totally off the wall and I personally enjoyed and people thought something weird about me? In a way, I guess, is exposing a side of yourself that's very difficult to expect anyone to understand in the slightest way. Dave was out, Sammy was in. The guitar world was there to get the inside scoop. That was an exciting time. Will you ever look back at those years with Dave and regret that it all fell apart? Eddie says, hell no. It was a blessing in disguise. When we get nominated for a Grammy and win, I'm going to thank him. I'm serious. Have you heard any of the music Dave's been working on? I hear it's good. Billy Sheehan is a bad mother. One of the best around. They may have songwriting problems, says Guitar World. Dave doesn't write and Steve Vai doesn't write those types of songs. And Billy writes heavy metal riffs, Eddie says. So he'll have to find outside writers, Guitar World says. Van Halen, he goes, he already bought some tunes from Steve Lukather. And Steve is such a nice guy. He actually asked me, hey, do you mind? I said, hell no, I don't mind. Billy Sheehan kind of asked me the same thing and said, what do you think? Dave just left the band and he wants the hottest guns to replace us. And he asked, well, hey, we're still friends, right? And I said, sure, I don't care. I got no beef with you. Actually, I got no beef with Dave either. It's just that he really hurt me. You know? That's what it boils down to. And that's why I was so pissed off in the very beginning. Talks about, had Dave heard any of the new material before they went to 5150? And Eddie says, oh yeah, I had Good Enough, Summer Nights, and we begun working on Dreams. It appears from 5150 that your writing has moved in a new direction. It's constantly changing, I guess. I don't really know where inspiration comes from or where anything comes from. Man, there's a lot of good stuff in this magazine. How'd you meet Sammy? I met Sammy at the MTV Awards. Now it's in our contract with Warner Brothers, has the right to refuse producers. I wanted the band to do it by ourselves and with Don, and they said no. They brought in Mick from Foreigner, he says. Billy Gibbons had a similar experience, says Guitar World. No one was sure about the idea of bringing in synthesizers in the ZZ Top. That's a good picture of Eddie there. Look at those jams. Anybody remember jams? I built the 5150 studio for the benefit of all of us, for all the family, for the band, but I guess certain people didn't look at it that way. Does Sammy play any guitar on 5150? Eddie says, no, I played all the guitars live, though he does a solo on the keyboard tunes. Guitar World asks, I wonder what Van Halen would have been like if Sammy had been the original singer. Eddie goes, I can't speculate. Maybe Sammy would be doing a movie right now and Dave would be in the band. Oh, goodness. Unlawful carnal riffage. There's some good tabs in here. Here's Eddie from the Best of Volume 2 days. He's got that Wolfgang. I like the EVH guitars better, but I think the PV, I like the PV headstock. As OU812 races up the charts, Eddie Van Halen discusses his band's latest work as an evolution as a guitar god. What kind of things bring you back to the same thrill of playing guitar that you felt when you started? Eddie says, where does inspiration come from? I don't know, maybe I've been spending so much time with the keyboards that all of a sudden I needed a guitar again, though I never really thought it left. Sometimes I pick it up out of boredom, sometimes I hear a song on the radio that inspires me to play. I don't think about soloing as much as I did on our first album. Guitar for the Practicing Musician says, some days you have to write because of a deadline. There are other days when it pours out. As a musician who's going to record it, it would be great if you could wait for those days. Eddie says, yeah, but you can't sit around and wait. It doesn't always come at once. Obviously, when inspiration knocks, you'd better be there to open the door. Feels So Good on OU812 was a prime example of a song where I was stuck. I had the opening melody. I didn't know where to go for a verse. I was stumped. Didn't come up with anything that I liked, so I put it away and worked on something else. I came back and all of a sudden came up with a verse. He wrote here about it later on keyboard. That explains those interesting chords. I had an empty feeling when my father died because a lot of drive was for him to make him proud. It was his name. I totally get that. Live Without a Net. It's very live. Nothing got fixed except some background vocals. Sammy left all the lead vocals. How good was the performance? It was very mediocre. We filmed 2 nights, and the first night everything went wrong. We got cables crossed with our wireless. Nothing worked. In order to save the expense of filming it, we said, whatever happens tonight is going out. We want to make the best of it. And man, that's an awesome video. When I used to get crocked and go out there and play, I'd be on autopilot, and sometimes I'd be more spontaneous, but I'm more consistent now. Monster of Rock. He sparked an eruption and an aftershock of monumental proportions. Who are some of the players that have impressed you over the past decade? Well, there's Satch and Vi. They're excellent players. I don't really listen to anything. I'm always wrapped up doing my own stuff. Always writing. Any lesser known players? Well, there's this band I'm producing called Private Life, and Danny Johnson, I love the way he plays. He's got a Louisiana blues sound. I remember Private Life. They opened up for Van Halen on OU812. I saw that tour. My first tour. Sometimes Al has a better ear for my playing than I do. I'll just play a hint of something and he'll stop me and say, that part right there. And more often than not, it will be something that will eventually evolve into a song. Pound Cake come from Al recognizing the potential of a chord progression. Neat. You mentioned Satch and Vi earlier, but did anybody who else came up in the 80s make you sweat? Maybe a little? Eddie says, no, see, nobody makes me sweat. If anything, when I hear somebody good, it inspires me, you know, like when I first heard Holdsworth. Oh, those are so cool looking. Look at these 5150s, man. If I want to play keyboards or I want to play tuba, I'll play it. What do you think about Edge from U2? Who doesn't have a whole lot of chops but still created an identifiable sound. Eddie says, he sure likes his echo, doesn't he? But see, there again, he's more of a songwriter, and that's where it's at. Expressing yourself in a song is a lot more wide open than all these kids who are just gunslingers. They'll come around. You can't be doing that all your life. It's impossible. You ever feel, Guitar World says, you ever feel in a very small way responsible for the emphasis on speed playing today? Eddie goes, for kids playing like typewriters, hey, that's not my fault. Maybe they cop the speed because they can't cop my feel. Maybe they shouldn't think so much. I don't think when I play. I get the basic parts of the song, and then when I start soloing, I don't think. Man, look how crusty and cruddy that Floyd Rose is, man. Even Eddie's neck is worn out, like past the top fret. Like, how do you wear out the spot that you don't even play? This is Sammy interviewing Eddie. Man, this is a great magazine, man. You are always easily intimidated, and you shouldn't be. Some of this stuff contradicts itself. Eddie says, you only got 12 notes, and however you mix them up is your thing. Old strings, new strings. Every time I walk into the middle or into the studio and pick up one of your guitars, it's got old, screwed up strings. And Eddie goes, because I like the warm sound, because what I do when we're recording is if I snap a string, I'll change one, but I never really restring, but live I do. Believe it or not, when I'm jamming with you, Mike, and Al, that's fun. Hagar says, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Speaking of me, whenever we play back and forth, do I ever kick you in the ass? Eddie says, you inspire me. And Sammy says, to play better? Eddie, yeah. Sammy says, you should play with better guitar players more often. It would be good for you. Eddie goes, oh, you mean when you play? These guys were such good friends, man. I think that's what hurt me the most when they broke up. I was like, you know, sucks. Sometimes when I'm bummed out, I'll write something happy to cheer myself up, says Eddie. Do you think it's more important, Sammy asks, to pick up a guitar and write a song rather than practice? Do you still try to progress as a guitarist, or just use it to write songs? And Eddie says, when I first started out, to be the most important thing was how fast you could play and what a technician you could be. It's all changed. My priorities have changed to the point where, to me, a solo is like a song within a song. How do you feel today about the Monsters of Rock tour? Guitar World asks. A lot of people slammed us for it. We sold a lot of tickets. Not all of them were sold out, but hey, they were stadiums. That same year, Aerosmith GNR did the same thing, and they only sold like 30,000 seats outdoors. I didn't hear anybody ragging about that. You received a lot of flack about playing keyboards. Do you think people still don't see you as a keyboard player? I love playing keyboards, man. I write a lot of stuff on keys. It's like they don't realize that I play keyboards. It's funny that was such a big deal. I never thought it was a big deal. I thought it was cool. I wouldn't play keyboards if it wasn't for Eddie. If it wasn't for Ed. and Paul McCartney. All right, we got some interesting stuff on some of the tabs. A lot of good tablatures in here. That was pretty much it, man. That's a lot of good interviews. I'm going to go through some of these. There's a lot of content in that. So I hope you liked it. Guitar Legends from 2004 on a hot summer night. Please comment below if you like this kind of stuff. Subscribe, and until next time, peace out.